And the second person we're going to look at today is Peter. Remember we said we'll do Peter later? So here comes Peter. Here's a guy that was handpicked by Jesus. He was one of the 12 disciples that would follow Jesus and help him in this ministry right up till the cross on Calvary. So these guys are with him, and Peter was always the spokesperson. He was the one that would talk a lot. If you could always ever, or maybe you know somebody that would open their mouth and insert their foot all the time because they just say something really, really dumb, Peter was the guy. But he loved Jesus. He loved him like crazy. He really did. But like you and me, sometimes Peter would write checks with his mouth that his heart could never cover. So if we go to Matthew chapter 26, we'll take a peek at Peter and some of the things that he did. In Matthew 26, verse 31, it says, "On the way, Jesus told them, 'Tonight all of you will desert me, for the scriptures say that God will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.'" Who's the shepherd? Jesus. And who's the sheep? We are, they were, the disciples at that time. He's walking on the way to Jerusalem with 12, and they're getting ready to go there. And he just tells them this kind of out of the blue. But then he says this, "After I have been raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee, and I'll meet you there." Now these guys are probably thinking, this guy's really getting weird. After you get raised from the dead, you're going to go ahead and you're going to meet us in Galilee? Oh, hey, this is wonderful. Whoa. Peter declared, because Peter always declared something, he says, "Even if everyone else deserts you, I will never desert you." Let me ask you a question. Was Peter sincere in this statement at the time?
Yes.
Totally sincere. He really meant that. He said, "Jesus, I'll never leave you. Everybody else could leave you, but I'll be the one to be right with you. I'm the right-hand man. I'm the guy." Jesus replies to Peter's statement, and he says, "I tell you the truth, Pete. This very night, before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times that you even knew me." So he says, you're not going to deny me once. You're not going to deny me twice. You're going to deny me 3 times. Then a rooster's going to crow to seal your deal. He said, "That's what I know." And Peter's like, "Oh no. You have no idea how tight we are, Jesus. Never leave you." So Peter does say, he insists. And he says, "Even if I have to die with you, Jesus, I will never deny you." And all the other disciples, they vowed the same. Unison. Nice to have everybody in agreement. Be nicer if it actually meant something. But have you ever made a promise with good intentions? Really? You ever made a promise with good intentions and yet fail miserably in that promise or intention? And it's like, you know how big you feel at that time? It's kind of like, oh, how did I do that? And how did I get myself in this place? And what do I got to do now? I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to go to somebody and say, I really messed this up. But yet that's what we're called to do. Peter was about to spiral into the darkest of dark places. He didn't know it, but Jesus knew it because Jesus knows everything. So let's read together really what happened. In John chapter 18, verse 15, it says, "Simon Peter followed Jesus, as did another of the disciples that the other disciple was acquainted with the high priest, so he was allowed to enter the high priest's courtyard with Jesus." Now you got to remember, this particular scenario, this scene here, is after Jesus gets caught, he gets arrested. This is the beginning of the end for Jesus. So they're bringing him in before the high priest and everything. He's going to go through a lot of these trials. So you have the Apostle John, who knew everybody. He seemed to be close, like the people person. He's going in now, and he's following Jesus. He's allowed to go there. So he was allowed, it said, to enter the high priest's courtyard. Peter had to stay outside the gate. Then the disciple who knew the high priest spoke to the woman watching this gate, and she let Peter in for him. So now the one disciple that Jesus loved, of course, was John. That's how he referred to himself in the third person. So the woman asked Peter, he said, "You're not one of that man's disciples, are you?" What did he say?
No.
Oh, no, I am not. Somebody say one. Because it was cold, the household servants and the guards had made a charcoal fire. Now, for those of you that are newer to the church, I love this particular story here because when it used the word charcoal fire, the Bible only ever refers to a charcoal fire twice. Just twice. Everything else that ever refers to a fire, it's made of wood. Why it says this, I'm sure that there's a reason, because the Bible is full of reasons and symbols and types of things. So here he is, and he's next to this charcoal fire that they made, and it said they stood around it warming themselves, and Peter stood with them warming himself. Inside, the high priest began asking Jesus about his followers and what he had been teaching them. Jesus replied, "Everybody knows what I teach. I preach regularly in the synagogues and the temple where the people gathered. I've not spoken in secret. So why are you asking me this question? Ask those who heard me. They know what I said." Then one of the temple guards standing nearby slapped Jesus across the face. "Is that the way to answer the high priest?" he demanded. You know, it's really funny. The guy's worried about the high priest, but he's slapping God.
Yeah. Wow.
Sometimes we don't know everything.
Yeah.
Jesus replied, "If I said anything wrong, then prove it. But if I'm speaking the truth, why are you beating me?" Then Annas bound Jesus, sent him to Caiaphas, the high priest. Meanwhile, as Simon Peter was standing by the fire warming himself, they asked him again, "You're not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it again, saying, "No, I am not." Two. But one of the household slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter just cut off in the garden a little earlier that night, ask again, "Didn't I see you out there in that olive grove with Jesus?" And again, Peter denied it. How many times?
3.
How many times did Jesus tell him that he would deny him? 3. And it said, and immediately, what'd it say? A rooster crowed. Now there's another version, I believe in Matthew, that talks about that when he denied Jesus the third time, that they were in close proximity, Jesus actually looked over and saw him. And Peter caught his gaze and knew this at the time. And it said Peter left there weeping bitterly because he knew what he'd just done. All the good intentions in the world that he had and everything that he had inside his heart, that he loved Jesus that much, he just sold him out. And Jesus prophesied the whole thing that it would happen. So what happens to Peter now? What happens to us when we're in a situation like this? What happens? It's hard. What really, really happens is we get to experience the love, the mercy, and the grace of God like you've never seen it before. Because once again, God is love. That's His very nature. So how is God going to help Peter in this situation? How is God going to be able to give Peter all these unlimited mulligans that he really, really, really needed? And he needed a lot of them at this point. So Peter didn't know about it. He didn't. All he knew is he really messed up. The shame, the hurt, all these things flooding inside of his mind. So Jesus gets crucified, and then his boys, these 12 guys, or 11, because one of them didn't make it yet, they go back to their old life of fishing and catching nothing. That's what they were really good at. And here's Peter going back on the boat, back fishing. And, after snap hooking 3 attempts into the woods, Peter really needed somebody to believe in him again. Hello. Let's see if Peter was awarded 3 mulligans to replace those awful statements of denial that he sent to Jesus. John chapter 21. Here's the culmination of this teaching. In John 21 verse 1, it says, later Jesus appeared again to the disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. Remember he said, I'll meet you in Galilee. After I get crucified, I'll go ahead and we'll meet up there. Well, when Jesus says something, that's what he does. He's been crucified at this point. He's died. He's been severely beaten and nailed to a cross. And he got the cat of 9 tails, 39 stripes across his back. If you read your Bible and you study history, it says many times that would cut a person right in half. So, I mean, he was just a mess. Really bad. They punched him. They pulled the beard out of his face. They put giant thorn crown on top of his head. So, for him to get up on the cross and die quickly was understandable. He's been through a lot. But now he appears to the guys at Sea of Galilee. And this is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there. Simon, Peter, Thomas, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples. Simon Peter said, I'm going fishing. Of course, that's what they do. Well, we'll come too, they all said. So they went out in the boat and caught nothing all night, because that's what they were good at. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was. So he called out, fellas, have you caught any fish? Do you suppose Jesus knew that they didn't catch any fish? No, they replied. Then he said, throw out your net on the right-hand side of the boat and you'll get some. So they did, and they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. Then the disciple that Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic because he had stripped for work. Then he jumps into the water and he starts swimming to shore, probably setting an Olympic record for the 100-meter breaststroke, whatever he was doing. But I mean, he just wanted to get there.
Yeah.
The others stayed with the boat and pulled a loaded net to shore, for they were only about 100 yards from the shore. When they got there, they found breakfast waiting for them. Now listen to this. Fish that was cooking over a charcoal fire. Now remember, I told you that only charcoal has a weird smell to it. You got to remember, especially when it's first burning. It's not clean smelling like wood would be initially. And he said he had some bread. So Peter's running up. He's looking for Jesus, and he may just get another whiff of the... charcoal. May bring him back to that day, that night, when he was warming his hands, when he did what 3 times? Denied Jesus. So now he's standing in front of Jesus once again, whiffing that charcoal fire that Jesus has with the fish on it. Coincidence? Maybe. It just seems kind of ironic that it was there and it was only twice. Bring some of the fish you just caught, Jesus said. So Simon Peter went aboard, dragged the net to shore. It says there was 153 large fish, and yet the net still didn't tear. He said, come and have some breakfast, Jesus said. None of the disciples dared to ask him who you are because they knew it was him. Jesus served them the bread and the fish. This was the 3rd time Jesus appeared to his disciples since he had been raised from the dead. Then after breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Now he's having this talk with Peter. He's actually going back with Peter, and he's revisiting some things at this point. So he's having this talk. Simon Peter, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, Peter replied. You know I love you. Then feed my lambs, Jesus told him. Jesus said, all right. That's 1 mulligan. Jesus repeated the question, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, Peter said. You know I love you. Then take care of my sheep, Jesus said. Jesus said, okay, there's another mulligan. A third time, and maybe it's just coincidence, I don't know. Just seems like it matches up really well, doesn't it? So a third time he said, Simon Peter, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a third time. He was hurt. Do you suppose that Jesus was hurt a little bit when Peter denied him the third time?
Yep.
He said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Did Jesus know that he loved him?
Yes.
Absolutely. Jesus said, feed my sheep. He knew what Peter was going to do. He knew that Peter was going to go on to be one of the greatest evangelists, one of the greatest men to walk the face of the earth, sharing and teaching others all about Jesus Christ. Jesus already knew this. He saw it in Peter. He was the rock. But a whole bag of mulligans, a whole bag of forgiveness, a whole bag of do-overs,